State Representative Jenn Coffey, and she's a courageous woman, and she's an intelligent woman, and she's doing all sorts of great things in the Free State movement and for the country. And I'll just get out of her way now.
Thank you. Morning, guys.
Good morning, Ms. Coffey.
Good morning.
I want to do things a little bit different this morning. I'm going to ask you guys, I want you guys to talk with me. I want to have a conversation. Raise your hand if you know the answer. And I think this group, I'm betting money, this is going to be the one time I ask this question that I get the correct answer. What are the first 5 rights under the First Amendment of the Constitution?
Freedom of speech, religion,
Okay. We got religion, press, speech. Help her out, guys. Who can give me the last 2?
freedom to assemble.
Right to what? Nope. Say it louder. Peaceably assemble. Okay, we're up to 4. What's the 5th one? Nope. Wrong one. Still missing number 5. We've got speech,
Petition.
religion,
Petition.
press. I'm hearing it.
Petition.
Say it louder.
Petition.
Right to petition. Redress of grievance. You have a problem with your government, you're supposed to have the right to say, I have a problem with you and I want you to address it. 5 rights in one amendment. What protects those rights? And we know they're all given to us by God, right? We know government put them in there to say, this is what government can't do to you. It's not supposed to be government giving you these rights. I'm going to give you your freedom of speech. Did government give you that? No. Who gave you your freedom of speech?
God.
Right. Who gave you your freedom of religion?
God.
Why is it in the Constitution?
God.
To bind the hands of government. To say government cannot step on this. And they gave us one particular one they felt the need to enumerate. They felt the need to put it in writing. And that was the Second Amendment. Who can tell me what the Second Amendment is? Give me the exact words. Exact words.
A well-regulated militia being necessary.
Louder, louder.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to a free state. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Is there a comma in there?
Somewhere.
Yeah, there is. Separating which 2 ideas?
I don't know.
What did she just say? Somebody repeat it. In just basic terms. Huh? No, no. Come on, what were you going to say?
I was going to read.
You're going to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, stand up and read it loud.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the Secretary of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Where's there a comma?
After Secretary of a free state.
Security.
Security.
Security of a free state. And
In between what word and what word? Where do you see a comma?
state and the.
Huh?
State and the.
What 2 ideas are separated? You see it? The 2 ideas that are separated are militia and the right to keep and bear arms. They are not connected as one sentence. There is a comma there separating those 2 ideas, and that's very important to understand because it's the right that most frequently throughout history governments has tried to step on the people. The Second Amendment is essential because without it, how are you protecting your right to free speech, your freedom to assemble? What protects all your rights is the Second Amendment. The right to have a militia is the right of the people to be able to defend their area, their nation, their country, their state. The right to keep and bear arms is your individual right of liberty to protect yourself, your family, your property. How many people here think the Second Amendment's about hunting? Anybody? A lot of people do. Every time you see something going on in government when it regards guns, It's about hunting. Well, you don't really need that firearm for hunting, so we can make it illegal. Based on its appearance, based on its style, based on its inherent appearance of evil. Now, we've all seen the news, we've all seen atrocious crimes take place in our nation. You ever heard of somebody hitting somebody with a car? Yeah. People can do some really awful things to each other. There's a lot of evil out there. Do they always use a gun or a knife to hurt somebody?
No.
No. But government tries to make it look like they do by infringing upon your right to have arms. Arms is an all-inclusive term. It's not limited to firearms, and it's most certainly not limited to hunting. It's about your right to self-defense, and it's also about your right to defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Yes.
And that's essential to understand. You guys seem like you're pretty astute. I bet you know a lot about history. Anybody heard of a guy named Hitler?
Yes.
Yes.
So the first thing that Hitler did was to make sure he made lists of the people. I know who you are, what you are, where you live. The next thing Hitler did was to make sure that he went to those doors and knocked on them and take away their arms. If I disarm you, if I take away your ability to defend yourself, and then I come back and I want to take you, how are you going to defend yourself?
Can't do
So protecting the Second Amendment is essential to protecting your liberties, all of your liberties. If you lose the Second Amendment, you lose the rest of your liberties. Think about that for a second. If I want to exercise my right to freely assemble and display my displeasure for government, I should be able to do so. What do they have to fear from me if they know I cannot defend myself?
it. Good point.
For that matter, what does a criminal have to fear from me if I can't defend myself? David, will you come up here, please?
What's up, big guy? Yeah. Good beast.
Come steal me. Hi. How good do you think I'm going to be defending myself against David here? Where do I come up to? How much weight do you think he's got on me? The government will tell you that David was a bad guy and was coming towards me. This is my defense mechanism. 911! How quick are they coming?
911.
Is that going to work?
Nope.
Heck no! Guess what
911.
just happened? The cops will show up, David is gone, I am on the floor, and they're going to try and figure out what happened. Now, David's a bad guy, he's trying to come at me. Stop or I'll shoot! What just happened?
You stopped.
Maybe I got a fighting chance.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe I am not the victim of robbery. Maybe my mom and dad don't get hurt. Maybe my house doesn't get robbed. Because I had the ability to stop it. Now, in most states, the government says, David's approaching me, I'm supposed to run! Turn my back and run on the would-be criminal. Now, what if he's got a gun? Ooh, how'd that go? Uh-oh. Am I still a victim?
Yep.
Yeah.
So is turning my back and trying to run away from a criminal a really good idea?
Nope.
No, it's not. I don't advise it. I don't care what the government says.
Mhm.
I don't advise it. Don't turn your back on somebody about to hurt you, or take from you, or your loved ones, or your little sister, or your little brother, or when you get much, 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 much older, your children. It's important to be able to defend yourself. But with that comes something even greater, and that is to know, understand, and be responsible. If you are going to choose your right to life over the life of that criminal, and you want to choose to use an object to defend yourself, whatever that object may be. A gun, a knife, what have you. You need to know how to use it. You need to have it be properly safe. You need to be trained. You need to take a class. You need to experience using it, be confident in using it, and understand that you never point a gun at anything you don't want to see dead. Period. I don't care if somebody hands you one and says, oh, it's not loaded, here, want to play? Check it out, it's cool, come on, hold it. Did you clear it? Do you know if it's empty? That's when accidents happen. And they will use those accidents to say, this is why people shouldn't own guns. Only people should own guns are cops. Well, the way that really works is cops and criminals. Because when you disarm the law-abiding, the only people left with the guns are the cops and the criminals. And if the cops an hour away from your house, since it's my situation, I live in a little town. If my local police officer's not on, the police officer who's coming to me is 22 miles away. That's not gonna help.
No, it isn't.
So in my family, we practice firearms safety, firearms training. My son knows how to use them. And he knows how to defend his family, and he also understands it's not a toy, it's not a game. And that's important. Now, some places in the world are really pushing hard to take that right away from you. And they're doing it because look at history. Not just Hitler. Does somebody else think of a good dictator?
Stalin.
Stalin. Think of another one. How about
Gaddafi.
Pol Pot? Huh?
Gaddafi.
Gaddafi.
Mussolini.
Mussolini. What do they do? Go ahead.
Napoleon.
Okay. What do these guys do?
Kill people.
Huh?
Kill people.
But how do they make it easier for them to control people? Take away their arms. They catalog them on lists. If you can't defend yourself when they come knocking at your door, what are you going to do? Get on the train? And I say that, but I mean it. In Germany, when Hitler started his regime, like I said, the first thing he did was disarm the people. And he had his lists. And he took Jewish families and he put them in a special place, the ghettos. And he said, we're just putting you here. That's all we're doing is we're just moving you here. This is for the people. We will have a better world. Then they came back and they knocked on their doors of these disarmed people who had been moved from their families and their homes into these ghettos, and they marched them out and they put them on the trains. Half my family is dead from being in concentration camps. I have pictures of them. I know what they look like. But that's reality. That really happened in this world, and it can happen again. The greatest mistake that mankind makes is repeating its own mistakes.
Yes.
Look at history. Every time you see a good dictator, there was another one before him, teaching them how to make it for the people. They don't want you to be an individual. Individuals think for themselves. They want you to think as a collective. What is for the best of the collective? What is for the best of the collective is for everybody to see safe. And you know, guns can kill people, so to make us safer, we should have it. And that push is happening right now in our United States. To take away your Second Amendment rights. Some of you here, I think, are from New York, right? In New York City specifically, they've gotten so far as what they're doing now is confiscating knives. Knives are evil. In Australia, you can't have a pocket knife. In some countries of the world, you can't even have a table knife that's not curved at the top. It's not allowed to have a point. You might hurt yourself or somebody else. In New York, they're actually going, in New York City, they're going into stores and confiscating them and taking them, and they're taking them from people on the streets and charging them with crimes. Do I look like a criminal?
No.
Am I doing anything criminal right now?
No.
Sure?
No.
No, I'm not, especially in this state. Because in New Hampshire, Hampshire, I can carry a pocket knife till I'm blue in the face, and it's not illegal. There are no illegal knives in New Hampshire. In New York, I'm a criminal. In Boston, I'm a criminal. The blade's too long. Blade length makes me a criminal. Not my actions, not my deeds, but mere possession of a tool. Now, what can I use this for? Opening a box, opening a crate, cutting a rope, or in my industry, cutting somebody out of a car who's stuck in their seatbelt after an accident. But I'm a criminal, depending on where I am, merely for possessing a tool. When we allow government to create those types of laws, we allow our rights to be taken from us. What comes next? So let's think about that. How many here actually go to a public or a private school, like function building? Quite a few of you. You got dress code? No. Yeah? Seen some interesting clothes on your fellow students, right? You ever see anybody walking around with a t-shirt with a gun on it?
Yes.
They get in trouble?
No.
You're lucky. Most schools, they do. The mere picture is offensive. They're teaching you to believe that to see a gun or to see a knife is to look at something inherently evil. And I'm telling you that's not true. They are tools given to you to be able to defend yourself, your families, your loved ones, and people against a tyrannical government. They are not inherently evil. Any object can be evil in the hands of an evildoer.
Amen.
I could pick this up. This is a speaker, right? But if I hit somebody with it, what is it?
A weapon.
That's right. Now it's evil. Here, it's just a speaker. My knife is just my knife. It doesn't become something evil unless I do something with evil intention against another. So a law should not be created from simply having a tool. That's where you guys come in. It's important for you to understand these things because what we're trying to do is make sure that you guys continue the fight that we're fighting. That you vote, that you pay attention, that you speak out. Because when people don't speak out, evil grows. There were a lot of people in Germany that were offended by what Hitler did. A lot of good people. There were Christians that hid Jews, but they never spoke out. They remained silent out of fear. Because they were disarmed, because they felt unempowered, they were silent. What could have changed in Germany if all of the people had stood up and said no? How many people wouldn't have died? Probably, but they didn't. They remained silent. We live in a day and age when we discussed the First Amendment, right? Right to freedom to assemble. Do you think you have that right? In a public square. You guys all want to get together and go out in a public square. Is that right intact for you?
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere. How about not anywhere? Why? Because your freedom to assemble should mean your freedom to assemble, not that you have to go to City Hall, ask government's permission, and give them money in order to exercise that right. And that's what you have to do now. There's nowhere in the United States that you can freely assemble without asking government permission and buying a permit to buy your right in order to exercise it. So do we actually have that right intact, or has it been usurped? And we've kind of accepted it. So, Second Amendment, I'm supposed to have my right to bear and keep arms. In most states, if I choose to bear arms, I have to do what? Go to the government, ask for permission, or in some states like Massachusetts, beg. If they decide they're going to grant me my God-given right, think about that. Man is putting himself here.
Above God.
And putting God here. Because he's saying, you got to come to me to use your God-given right.
Mm.
God gave me that right, man didn't. Man put it in the Constitution to say, government, you can't step on this. This came from God, not from government. And we put it in here to make sure the government was on notice to say, these are the things you cannot take from the people. Well, it was written 200 years ago. Maybe old. I had a representative once I debated who told me that, well, that was written 200 years ago when everybody wore guns. We don't need that now. So the Constitution, I guess, is a living document. It should change, right? Is that what it is?
Nope.
Because I think if we say that, then we're saying that the Bible is too.
That's right.
If you believe the Bible is God's word, and no man should come along and go, well, you know, I don't really like that paragraph, so I think I'm just going to cut it out. Let's just cut that one out. I bet there's a paragraph or two in there you guys would be like, oh, I kind of wish we didn't have that one in there. My life would be a little bit more fun if I didn't have to worry about that. But you can't. Because it's God's word. It's there for you to know, you to learn, you to follow. Save for the Constitution. There are God-given rights. Enumerated to control government, not you. And that is the most important thing I want you guys to understand. Everything revolves around that. And the essential protection of that is our Second Amendment right. The biggest thing that they like to teach you in schools, for those of you that raised your hands and said you were there, is just the mere sight of a gun. You should be afraid. There's a fear factor they want you to have. You had that experience?
In my school, we actually have a JRPC program where we shoot guns on like a range.
What school are you in?
Right now, she's in high school.
Awesome. What state's that in?
New Hampshire.
Oh, go figure. Go ahead.
We have JRPC too, and then we have a rifle team in Massachusetts, and like the other teachers all around, they'll just like look at you if you're like, if you mention it, they'll just like give you like the most awful look.
Evil word, huh?
Yeah, like rifle. Once you mention the rifle team, they just freak out.
My son went to school one day and he had this shirt on. It had a picture of a couple of rifles crossed, and it had the Marine motto around it. And the teacher said, "You can't wear that in school." My son said, "Why?" "Well, it has pictures of guns on it." I said, "Well, what do you have against the Second Amendment and the Marines?" Teacher left it alone.
I'm in Massachusetts, and I live in rural Massachusetts, and my friends and I are always like big guns fans, and we always talk about like, guns and stuff. And teachers walking by me and I'm like, yes.
Be careful if they do. There was an incident. For those of you that don't know, one of the bills that I put in was to change the laws in New Hampshire to make sure that knives, because there were some knives that were considered evil on New Hampshire's book. In fact, it's pretty prevalent across the state. Back in the 19th, how many of you guys had to read or watch West Side Story? There you go. Rebel Without a Cause. Maybe not so much that one, but West Side Story is pretty popular with the schools. Back in the 1950s or so, when those things were prevalent, remember West Side Stories, the gangs, sharks, and they're out there on the street with their knives, and they had switchblades. Push a button, it opens. Kid you not, go home and go look at some of the states. They all have laws in the books that switchblades are legal. And you push a button and it opens. I'll tell you what, I can open my manually open knife just as quickly as I can my switchblade. The only difference is the technology that makes it open. It's no more evil or less evil simply because of that mechanism. But those stories, they taught evil. So my son's at school one day, and he's talking to his buddy about this bill that I put in about knives. And the teacher walks by, and he hears the conversation. Doesn't stop and ask my son what he's discussing. Doesn't actually have a conversation. Hey, what are you guys talking about? Oh no. Straight down to the principal's office. There's these two kids and they're talking about knives and there's gonna be mayhem in the school. We better call the police. Ah! So they call my son down to the principal's office and he's sitting in front of 3 people. well, we understand, Mr. Coffey, that you were having this conversation, and you know, we're a little concerned that maybe you and your friend might have been planning a little. Can you give us a little explanation as to what that conversation was about? My son's like, are you kidding me? My mom's a state rep, and she put this bill in, and they're all looking at him like, you talking about legislation? So he had to kind of explain that a little bit to them, apparently. He comes out to the car, I'm going to pick him up that day. He comes out to the car and tells me, which of course puts the mama ears on. I'm getting, all right, I'm getting up. No, I don't care if you think you handled this. And I'm in the school now going, you want to tell me why you were harassing my son over a piece of legislation in the New Hampshire House? Well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Coffey. I'm sorry, Mrs. Coffey. You know, we just heard the concept. So you hear a kid mention the word knife and you automatically think evil? Do you stop and talk to them if you hear them talking about sex? Did they get called into the office if you heard so-and-so talked about so-and-so hitting so-and-so? Oh no, but we were to run around and call the cops because somebody used the word knife in school. The sky is falling. That's what they want to teach you. You see a knife, you see a gun, and God, boy, they're evil. I'll tell you what, they're lifesavers.
What about like the long plans? You can't set chairs or phones or anything like that. Well, I mean not chairs, but phones.
You really want to talk about the TSA? The terrorist group themselves? I've done everything, I'm still doing everything I possibly can to stop that. It's horrible. Nobody should have to be molested to get on a plane. We sent a joint resolution from the House and the Senate to Congress and the President and telling them that we want this to stop with the TSA. I've talked to Congressman Ginta. I want this to stop with the TSA. And I've sent them horror story after horror story after horror story of what they're doing to people. And here's another good example. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Everybody has seen the videos of people being molested. Children. I read a story about a woman who was 30-year flight attendant veteran going to work. And this is her job. She gets stuck on one of those planes every day to make a living. This day she goes to work and TSA says, something didn't look right when you went through that scanner, ma'am. Come on over, secondary search. I work here. Over here, secondary search. She was a breast cancer survivor, and she had had what's called a mastectomy, which is where they remove a breast that has cancer. She had a prosthetic breast for her appearance, for her comfort level. They made her take it out and remove it in front of them. They then handled it and put it through an x-ray machine. The thing about these situations that are going on with the TSA that bothers me the most is, remember we had that conversation about Germany?
Yeah.
How many people go by the airport and they see something like this? What would happen if 50 to 100 people walking through the airport, seeing something like this, stopped and said, what you're doing to that person is wrong? The power of people united is huge.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've noticed, and I've heard Dr. Paul talk about this, that government likes to do is keep us separated.
Yes.
Reverend, you touched on this yesterday. Hate crimes. If I hurt somebody, does it really matter who they are, what they are?
Nope.
Or does it matter that I hurt somebody?
Right.
Is one crime greater than another just because of who somebody is?
Nope.
According to New Hampshire law, if you hit me, it's felony. Just because I'm a state rep. Well then, you know, I am Jewish, so we could go that way and say, well, you hit me because I'm Jewish, so it's a hate crime, so we get to add more sentencing time. Or should it just simply matter that you committed a crime?
Right.
Whether you're Jewish, Catholic, black, white, whatever, crime should be a crime. But what government does really good is it keeps us separated. It's white against black, it's Christian against Jew, it's against Muslim. If we're all in different categories, and we're only talking to our category, we're not very powerful, are we? If you guys only hang out with each other, and you don't talk to anybody who's not Christian, you don't talk to anybody who's not in your ilk, you don't exchange those ideas, because I'll tell you, you'll find that there are some similarities. There are things that you can agree on. You may not agree on a lot. Bet you can agree on the TSA. I haven't met anybody yet on the other side of the aisle who thinks that's a good thing. I mean, there's a few out there that, well, it's for your safety. We're all going to be safer when we make sure that we pat down 6-year-old children in airports. Yes. You feel safer when you see the 6-year-old being patted down, don't you? And somebody who probably looks more like a terrorist going on through. The TSA actually has 65,000 employees nationwide. They recently hired an additional 3,000 employees to institute a new SPOT program. They then successfuli figured out that they had 12 known terrorists fly through SPOT program airports. It's working real well. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that so long as we allow ourselves to remain silent and to remain separate, nothing's going to change. One of the greatest things we ever did here in New Hampshire, I think, was a few years ago when they came out with Real ID. Anybody know what Real ID is? Real ID was a scam, I mean an idea of government to change our driver's licenses into a national identification card. Now for those of you who read your Bibles, think about this. You will need this card in order to commerce, in order to travel, in order to work. Without this identification number, you cannot commerce, you cannot travel, you cannot work. What's that sound like?
666.
Mark of the beast.
Sure does.
That's right.
There's a lot of us that wear hairs standing up on the back of our head. They wanted to put these in our driver's licenses and put these little chips called radio frequency identification chips. It's not science fiction, it's science fact. Look it up, RFID. It's technology that is used currently now. It's technology you might be walking around this room right now with because they can embed it into clothing. It's the size of a grain of rice. And it's a tracking device. They'll tell you it's to track their inventory. If I'm a smart criminal, I go online and I order a handheld scanner and hook it up to my laptop. I can just, ooh, that house has got some goodies. I'm going to that one. Ooh, I know where that kid is. I'm not following him. This is what criminals do. They use what the tools that are available to them to get you. Okay? So RFID, or Real ID, when they tried to bring that forward, here in New Hampshire, we stood up and said no. There were about 7 of us that said no. 7 people's not a whole lot, right? We tried to get other people involved. We tried to get the media to pay attention. They totally blacked us out. Never, ever, ever concentrate everything that you know from the regular news networks.
Amen.
Because they're going to feed you what they want to feed you, not always the truth and not always everything. Use multiple resources. Talk to your friends, your family, your mom, your dad. Go online, look it up yourself.
Good, good.
Never take anything anybody says to you. Don't take anything I'm saying to you right now as gospel, as truth, unequivocal. I'm human. I'm wrong sometimes. Look it up. Seriously. So they developed this, and the media wouldn't talk about it. We started getting in more people, but here's the kicker. We had the Cato Institute, which is a very strict conservative organization, and the ACLU. You don't get any further left than that. Standing at the same press conference together against this thing. We had Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, anarchists, Christians, Jews, you name it, all standing in the same place saying no. And guess what happens when a whole lot of people say no?
No.
We cause a problem. It doesn't happen to you. Mom and Dad don't have Real ID in their wallet in most, well, not all states. New York, you can buy the enhanced version, which is an RFID license. Kentucky was the pilot state. New Hampshire was supposed to be a pilot state, and we actually turned the federal money down and said no. Believe me, that took a lot of people off. $3 million, come on. Because that's what government likes to do, you know. If you do this, I'm going to give you this. Money talks, right? How many people will, what's your price? How high do I have to go before you give it up? $3 million. All you got to do is comply.
all the money we got.
Obey. Man. We turned it down. Kentucky took it. You wanted to say something? I'm pretty sure that they were going to be compliant, but I don't know if they've gone 100% yet. It would be something I'd have to look into. And I'd ask. I'd flat out ask. Probably some of the states, what they did to comply was they put magnetic strip on the back with all your information, and they did not put the RFID chip in it, but it's something to look into. If you go to look up RFID technology, I wanted to encourage you guys to do that. In my family, we call, and forgive me, I don't care who hears this, we call Walmart the no-no store.
Yeah.
If you look up RFID technology, and you go to their website, the guys that make the stuff, obviously they want to sell it, right? There's actually information on there about how Walmart is requiring or pushing that the suppliers have RFID chips at the product level. So in the product you buy, the clothing, the cream cheese, whatever it is, in the product you buy. Now, on the positive side, they want to do this to control their inventory, to keep better controls. I can understand this. What they don't do on the other end is offer you a way to shut the thing off. So you walk out with your nice little beacon. Passports absolutely have RFID chips in them. Now what they want to do is they want to put those in guns. Let's chip the guns. I can't maybe get the chip into you yet, but I can put it in your firearm. That's my little scanner working for me now. Think about this. When Katrina occurred, law enforcement went door to door. You got any guns in here? Give it. You got a gun? Hand it over. And then they'd leave. They didn't take you necessarily, they just take your gun. There's a great video on YouTube of an elderly woman who was literally physically assaulted by the police to take her revolver. She was in an apartment that was dry, plenty of food, plenty of water, perfectly safe in her apartment, did not need to get gathered with the masses, was fine and independently protecting herself. They weren't there out of concern for her. They tackled her, took her gun, and left. An elderly woman. What bothers me most about that situation is